Welcome to another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. Today is Friday, April 15th, 2016. We're joined by the BitShares community and some individuals from the Bitcoin Talk forums might start showing up since we're starting to advertise there a little bit. What we would like to start out with here is just a really quick introduction for anybody who feels like they're going to be speaking out today or participating. And if you have a project that you're working with or that you would like to plug. So with that said, does anybody want to start after I here my name's Fuzzy and I am volunteering for Beyond Bitcoin and working with sharebits.io behind the scene. Does anybody want to get started?
Yeah, my name's
with
Dan
theirs?
Larimer. My name's Dan Larimer. I'm the founder of BitShares and Steem.
Anyone else have any project or want to speak up?
This is Once Upon a Time. I just want to say that there's a meeting of the advisors on the stealth project later today, so there won't be any news until sometime next week, so no use discussing stealth today.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else today who would like to stand up and introduce themselves to the listeners?
Hey Fuzzy, this is June, aka Mariver Cap, founder of BitShares. Really happy to be here today.
Founder of BitShares.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry about that, Big Cash.
Yeah, I was about to get there, but once upon a time, cut it off. It happens. So BitCash, right?
Yeah, it's early in the morning today, and West Coast, so I hope you guys forgive me.
Oh, we all feel you.
This is Brindle Swan, known as Doug Platt in another life involving wearable computers and cord keyboards, and I'm the real founder of BitShares. Just kidding.
Hey, I'm all for it. Anyone wanting to claim they're the founder of BitShares, go for it. That will really confuse the government when they decide to take someone down.
Well, does anybody else want to give themselves a little introduction and plug anything that's going on in the BitShares ecosystem? The reason why I want to start doing this is to kind of enable everybody who's participating to plug the different projects that are going on underneath the surface of the water with the big mass of the iceberg that is BitShares. So if no one has anything else, I think that we could get into some community updates for different projects.
Okay, so on the BitShares side of things, the main news is integration with new assets at OpenLedger. So Steem and some Ethereum assets are now supported or close to being supported to be traded on BitShares. The significance of this for BitShares is having more assets that aren't necessarily available on other exchanges is a great way to cause traders to check us out because they don't have any other alternatives. So we should certainly look toward increasing the number and types of unique assets trading on BitShares, as well as the number of projects which advertise BitShares as the trading platform. If it's okay with everyone here, I'll answer any questions regarding BitShares. And then I'd like to use this Mumble session to also answer and go into as much detail as anyone's interested in into the nature of Steem, its impact on BitShares, its impact on the cryptocurrency community, things that BitShares can learn from what we've done with Steem. I guess I'll start by taking any questions regarding BitShares.
So Dan Test is saying an Ether and BitShares MKR maker bridge 2, which who's created that?
So the assets are Lisk, DGD, and Maker MKR. Those are all bridged through OpenLedger at this point in time. So MKR is from Rune. So that's for the DAO.
So those 3 assets currently are trading on OpenLedger.info.
That is correct.
And the pairings I've noticed on here are I'm assuming here that this is going to be the same as the other assets, where you can pretty much create pairings among all the other assets as well.
Correct.
Does anybody have any questions regarding this? I was waiting for that one. Tess says, when can we trade on open.steem?
Well, Dan's here. He could probably answer better than I. He knows that I've been asking him that every single day this week. Last time I heard from him, he said the last guy working on this transaction scanning. So you can go from BitShares to Steem. And now he's in the process of automating going deposits from Steem into BitShares. He says probably tomorrow or Monday at the latest for having the transaction scanning integrated.
So probably tomorrow or Monday. And Tess is happy about this.
If he achieves it tomorrow or Monday, I'll give OpenLedger the first mover advantage on Steem integration. There are 2 other exchanges that are also actively integrating Steem at this point in time. I can't share who they are until they are done and publish it themselves.
Are these exchanges that most people are aware of, or?
Yes.
So
Interesting.
If someone bought Open Steem, is there a way to vest it?
Only by withdrawing it to Steem and then vesting. So, yeah, my advice right now is to price Open Steem at the supply ratio that you expect it to be in a week or 2. That way you have plenty of time to vest. I will get into some of these details on Steem rather than just start at the top and then work our way down, so that everyone has a chance to get caught up and understand what we're talking about with vesting Steem and all this other stuff.
If we're ready for it, I had just an overview of the whole process and purpose and why Steem came into being and just what your plans for it are, just as a top level kind of overview of the landscape.
Sure. Steem is the outcome of my efforts into building mutual aid societies. Mutual aid societies are depend on large numbers of people evaluating each other's claims in order to justify whether or not someone really deserves a payout, right? Sort of like, how do you make a whole community of BitShares into the insurance adjusters? Now, that's a complicated thing, but I recognized early on that we can use the same concept or a piece of it to build an internet forum, kind of like Reddit. So to understand Steem, imagine Reddit. Imagine Reddit paying people with shares in Reddit whenever they post content or vote on things on reddit.com. And all the payments are done proportional to votes and popularity received. Put that all on the blockchain and automate it. And now you've got yourself a social network / social content aggregator that rewards people for contributing content like news articles, blog posts, as well as rewarding people for commenting, engaging in discussion on the platform. And perhaps most innovative part of it all is it rewards people who take the time to vote. So if you vote up or down, only if you vote up actually. If you vote up posts that eventually become popular, you receive a proportion of the rewards for that post. That's proportional to your impact in percentage terms of increasing the total. Tessie, proportional to your impact in the overall growth of the popularity of the post. So Steem is effectively a social media platform completely implemented on a blockchain. And incentivized with tokens. Now, as we were building this, we had to solve many different problems. One of those things is free transactions. And a lot of these things we've actually already talked about in prior Mumble sessions under the perspective of integrating or adopting the concept for BitShares. So you'll probably recognize a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today from past discussions. They've actually been implemented in Steem. So let's talk about it, I guess, from the top. If someone's going to post content or vote or reply to a comment, they don't want to pay. Even paying 1 cent to post is enough of a barrier to entry to cause people not to get involved. So we needed to mirror the user experience of Reddit or any other social media platform. Now that means there are no fees at all on the Steem network. Instead, users are rate limited in the rate at which they can transact, or the amount of bandwidth that they can consume, proportional to how much vesting stake they have in the platform. Now let's talk about vesting stake. Users can convert, for every dollar that is created to pay someone for posting, $9 is paid to the people who have vested or locked up their stake for an average of 1 year. And vests, the token that we refer to this as vests. Vests can be converted back to Steem over 104 equal weekly payments. The concept here is that 90% of all Steem or more will be held by people who have a long-term interest in the future value of the platform. 90% will be held off of exchanges because exchanges can't hold vests. They're non-transferable, they're non-divisible. And that really creates a long-term outlook. The other thing that's different with Steem is that only vests can vote for witnesses. If you have liquid Steem, great, your reward is liquidity. You can buy and sell and transfer, but you don't get any voting power. That decision was made to address the problem we have with BitShares, where if people don't like the way voting goes, they sell and they leave. The network loses no matter what happens. So with vests, it encourages people to vote for long-term value, as well as not to vote and then sell if they don't like what happens. As I said earlier, Steem attempts to strip as many features out and get down to just the core features necessary for this one application. So whereas BitShares has been going down the path of let's add as many features and continually change and adapt the protocol trying to get new users, Steem is going down the path of protocol stability, core feature sets. And rather than trying to do everything, do the things it does well. So there's that.
So things with like the vesting voting, can these types of functionalities be incorporated in BTS at some point in time in the future, but if the community ever wanted to, or is this stuff like proprietary and
Technically, the reasons a lot of these features did not get integrated into BitShares, well, there's two reasons. One is that there is a social contract that I do not want to advocate violating ever since the merger, and that is increasing the supply of BitShares or changing the voting influence in BitShares. Yeah, right. We don't want to take or strip people's voting rights away from them. The other aspects of BitShares is the referral program and the fees. Eliminating fees or all fees in BitShares would, in turn, undermine some of the referral program. So it would require significant changes to the social contracts with BitShares. And that's why we had to create a new platform. Another lesson learned in creating Steem is how rational outsiders trying to decide, should I build my decentralized application on BitShares, Ethereum, or my own blockchain? That's the question everyone has to ask. And that's a question that I've been thinking about. So here's the downside to people who might want to build on Ethereum or BitShares, and that is you don't have control over the platform. You've got fees that you've got to pay. So if I had to pay a BitShares transaction fee to every time someone wanted to use my blogging application, that would require me to pass that on to my users. And that would also make the users, they'd have to track another asset. All right, now in addition to having BitShares, now I also need to have Steem and vests and other things. So it increases user complexity. So all those things said, the main benefits that BitShares as a platform offers is integration with the other smart contracts on the platform, namely the exchange, withdrawal permissions, all the asset permissions. But you're living in a world where you don't have complete control over which way things are going. You're subjecting your business to an external political process. And if you're on Ethereum, the protocol basically depends upon transaction fees. It would not be possible to build Steem on Ethereum for the simple fact that every single user action would consume Ethereum tokens. And there's one other factor in all this. The financial incentives when you're building a new platform. You're taking a large risk. You're investing a lot of money. Where is the capital appreciation going to accrue? Is it going to accrue to the holders of BitShares, the holders of Ethereum, or to the people who did the work? In order to make such an investment worthwhile on any one of these platforms, requires you to own a large part of the platform. Otherwise, you're diluting your efforts 99%. Other people get 99% of your efforts, and you get 1%. And then you got to make a profit off of that 1%. It's incredibly challenging. So, as the BitShares community as a whole needs to consider our collective business model, as well as how we try to market ourselves. We've been trying to get people to build apps or come to the network and say, hey, let's vote on this feature or these feedback assets. And those things entrepreneurs aren't really responding to. And so what I'm trying to say in this Mumble session is, why wouldn't an entrepreneur respond to those things, right? Those are obviously things that are in our interest as BitShares, but not necessarily in the best interest of people who might want to build on BitShares. Now, the benefits for building on BitShares or an existing platform means you don't have to support and maintain it. You can do relatively little work, right? You don't have to build a whole community, get listed on exchanges, write as much code, right? So there's some benefits to being on those platforms if you're small. But if you hope to get big and make millions and millions of dollars for the market, you need to carefully consider launching your own platform. And that leads us to, let's go back to Steem. Steem has one other asset in addition to Steem Invest, and that is Steem-backed dollars. The Steem-backed dollars are a pegged currency, kind of like BitUSD, but implemented in a very different way. I'd like to take an opportunity to discuss lessons learned from BitUSD and the market pegged assets, and how we transform those lessons into Steem-backed dollars on the Steem network. So let's talk about, where should I start? The primary difference between BitUSD and Steem-backed dollars is how it's created. The Steem network creates Steem dollars to pay people for their posts. And that's the only time they're created. They are not created by going short. There's no collateral behind them other than the blockchain's promise to convert a Steem dollar into a dollar's worth of Steem according to a price feed. Price feed is produced by witnesses, much like it is in BitShares. There's a 1 week delay in the conversion, and the conversion uses the median feed over the past week. So it's a median of medians, which means that it's resistant to short-term market manipulations, any manipulation that lasts less than 3.5 days. It's not going to manipulate the price. It's resistant to individual feeds going wrong, and so on and so forth. And the market knows that the blockchain is ready and able to print as much Steem as necessary to redeem it at $1. To keep the whole system stable, the network's actually creating $19 worth of vesting Steem for every $1 of Steem, for every Steem dollar it creates, which means that the in a stable market scenario, the debt to equity ratio of the network, the Steem dollars can be viewed as debt or a convertible note, and the Steem can be viewed as equity. It always approaches 5%. So even if 100% of all Steem dollars were converted and sold on the market, it should have relatively little impact. It would require a massive and sustained downtrend in the value of the equity before the system would unwind. But because most of the Steem is actually held in vesting, it can't be sold rapidly. So there's a very strong set of holders in Steem. And those holders are the ones that back a very small amount of debt. Now, the reason we added Steem dollars to Steem is a concept where we want to attract and retain capital. That's one. And two, we want to minimize cognitive load on users of the platform, both in terms of accounting, capital gains losses, as well as fear of, hey, I got paid, is it going up or down today? They just say, hey, I got paid, I don't need to cash out, I can just let it ride, and I can cash it out later. Both of those things increase demand and reduce the sell pressure on the Steem dollars. The other is that we'd like Steem dollars to be used as a currency. All users of the platform can pay each other in it. They know what it's worth. They know how to set prices. Paying people in Steem dollars is trivial. So there should be lots of demand for Steem dollars as a currency, in addition to just a means of things being paid out.
And these Steem dollars will be traded on exchanges outside of the BitShares network as well? Or if I get these dollars, how do I sell them?
Sure. Steem dollars will be integrated with exchanges just like Steem, which means they'll be able to be deposited, withdrawn, and sold on BitShares and other exchanges. There is also an internal exchange on the Steem network between Steem and Steem dollars. The purpose of this exchange is to facilitate instantaneous conversion between the two and to get better real-time price tracking for people who want to convert. The problem with the 1 week delay is you don't know what the price is going to be in a week. You don't know if you might not want to wait a week to convert. So we wanted to have the blockchain establish in real time the value of a Steem dollar with a large amount of liquidity. And this is why the Steem network actually has liquidity rewards for those who trade on the internal Steem-backed dollar market. There are no market fees, no order fees, no fees at all to trade on the internal market. And if you place an order on the books, let it sit there for at least a minute before it gets filled, you earn liquidity reward points. You have to provide orders on both sides of the books to maximize your rewards. And any time you consume liquidity by placing an order that matches someone else's, you get negative liquidity rewards. You need to have positive rewards on both sides of the market to actually get payouts here. So 1% of the market cap of Steem will be paid to the people who provide liquidity in the Steem dollar Steem market.
So that's the only pair then that'll be on the internal exchange. There won't be any other assets besides the Steem and the Steem dollars?
That is correct. There are no user-issued assets. This is not an attempt to create a decentralized exchange for everything. It's an attempt to create a stable currency that people understand and they can get paid in, and that they can use as tipping platform and minimizing cognitive load. It's really about retaining capital inside of the Steem network, giving people the confidence to trade on the internal exchange if they're just trying to trade speculatively on Steem. Make it possible to keep wealth with the blockchain. And so we need at least one stable asset. And we chose dollars simply because everyone already knows how to price things in dollars. Everyone's accounting has to be done in dollars. And accounting capital gains losses is a significant barrier to entry for cryptocurrency. So I'd like to go back to mile high view of launching a successful cryptocurrency and the barriers to adoption. Because we've been struggling with this with BitShares for 2+ years, and all cryptocurrency projects are struggling. So in order to get into Bitcoin, your marketing message has to convince someone to buy in. You either have to buy mining equipment, which is kind of like buying investing Steem, right? You spend Bitcoin today, you get it back over time, maybe.
Sure.
And then once you're in Bitcoin, now you got price volatility. So if I'm going to buy Bitcoin so I could transfer it to someone else to make a payment, I have losses due to price volatility. I've got fees going into it. You've got the whole know your customer validation that the exchanges go through. So, and then you've got the educational problem. How do you teach people that a Bitcoin has value? What is a Bitcoin worth? They've got to study exchanges. They've got to decide, should I buy it at this price or should I wait for it to come down before I buy it? Right? And then after they buy it, there's, half the time there's buyer's remorse. I should have waited. It just went down $10. Right? And that's just getting into Bitcoin. If you're going to create a new crypto platform, now you've got an additional hurdle. First, you got to get people into Bitcoin so that they can then move into your new platform. And those things combined means that the cryptocurrency scene, the market, is mostly restricted to speculators. Those who are already into cryptocurrencies, those who understand the basic value thereof, those who already have Bitcoin and accounts with various exchanges, making it easy to get into and out of. So if you wanted to run a campaign to get people to start adopting these things, you lose a large number of people long before they ever even get to try your product. Because guess what? You can't try BitShares until you've got some BitShares. And there's nothing you can do with a cryptocurrency that has any immediate value to anyone but a speculator or someone who's an early adopter, someone who's interested in the concept of alternative currency. But for your grandmother, or normal grandmothers, my grandmother's invested in BitShares, but normal grandmothers, they have no immediate utility from buying a cryptocurrency. And even merchants, they don't accept Bitcoin directly. They go through payment processors that convert it to fiat before it even touches the merchant. And all this stuff combined is dramatically restricting or complicating getting new users onto these platforms. So let's look at how Bitcoin got started. There was originally mining. Anyone could mine. I downloaded the program, ran it on my computer, and within 24 hours, I had 50 Bitcoin. Over the course of the first couple of weeks that I was mining, I got a couple hundred Bitcoin. And that was just on an old CPU I had laying around. That meant that at the beginning of Bitcoin, everyone could get in. You could hear about it, try it out, get involved, start paying people. And Bitcoin grew drastically. Now that process has become specialized to the point where the only way to get into Bitcoin is to either buy the Bitcoin or buy the mining equipment. It's no longer serving the same purpose that it was in the early days of Bitcoin. So when we set about creating Steem, we wanted to create a platform where anyone could work their way in, where time is just as valuable as cash, right? It's capital, just like cash. It's someone who works for a company or someone who invests in the company. They're both contributing to the value of the company. And so we wanted to build an algorithm for distributing the currency to as many people as possible, to provide a user interface for those people that is familiar and gamified, so people can log in, create an account, start doing something, start getting the currency, start participating. And the sales pitch is not buy-in, it's, hey, come to our platform, do what you're already doing for free everywhere else, and profit from it. It's a very different sales pitch. It's a very different onboarding message. And we think that it's going to be kind of like Bitcoin mining in the early days, where everyone can participate. The community is growing. You can invite your friends. They can get involved. And when they get paid, they see that it has real value. They're getting paid in dollars. The other thing that Steem's doing is it's creating something of value to people outside the network. Even if you don't have an account with Reddit or Facebook or Twitter, the fact that those services exist means that when you Google search something, you find what other people have been posting. You go to Stack Exchange, you find questions and answers because other people asked it and they were there. These services are creating value for every single person on the internet. And that's what we'd like Steem to do, is to not only create value for the people who are posting and using it, but to provide stuff that Google's searches will direct people to Steem. Because they search for something that someone posted the answer to on Steem. And that is the overall picture of what we're doing.
Lion Danny has a question here, and it goes like this. Are you not afraid that people will think you are now focused 100% on Steem and abandoned BitShares, so they would pull out their funds from BTS, and the BTS market cap will decline significantly? Can make a comment like, I will never leave BTS. I will continue to contribute heavy on BTS independently of Steem developing progress.
That has been a fear of mine. The reality is that BTS should never expect to get something from someone without compensating them. We should not expect someone who owns one... I'm echoing, Fuzzy.
Yeah, I'm looking.
We should not expect someone to continue working just because they have an investment. Everyone who owns something in BitShares already worked for and paid for and owns full title to the investment that they have in BitShares. We wouldn't expect SVK to continue working on BitShares just because he owns BitShares. So BitShares as a whole is designed to allow the stakeholders to vote to fund things to get done, to vote to grow things. I consider the platform, the exchange features of BitShares to be effectively complete. The ongoing work in the user interface is the realm of companies like OpenLedger and others who want to build on that exchange platform, people like BlockTrades. But from a purely dollars and cents perspective, we should expect everyone to invest their time and money where it's going to generate them the greatest return. And so I guess that's the answer. Is I don't want to be held to a different standard than anyone else in the community.
Well, you have an incentive, I would personally say, to at least be giving input at various stages. And I guess the question I would have then to kind of piggyback off of Lion Danny's question is, would you guys have the time to work on anything for BitShares if the BitShares community were able to pay for various work in the future? Or do you think that Steem is going to become a 100% time sink?
All projects go through different cycles in their development. Early on, they require 100% of your time, actually 200% of your time early on. And as the project matures, it goes from development to maintenance and support, and it requires less and less of your time. BitShares as a project has it's gone into the maintenance and support phase. I am happy to continue providing insight and guidance and direction for BitShares. Mumble sessions like this talk about how BitShares can grow. But one thing that is important to me is to give advice and speak what I believe is true rather than what's in some financial interest of some party. So, it's critical to me that BitShares doesn't die because so much of my own reputation is in BitShares. My brand is, if BitShares were to fall, that hurts me. So I certainly don't want to do anything to hurt BitShares. But I will continue to innovate and speak the truth about the problems with BitShares, because if we don't face the problems that BitShares actually has and come to solutions to address those problems, then we're just hurting ourselves. So, we've been talking about in these Mumble sessions the need to fund development, the need to fund support. Something as simple as the blockchain maintenance for proposal not getting funded means the blockchain is not even paying for bare minimum support, let alone new feature development. So we really need to consider carefully what we do there. So I've been thinking about things that can be done for BitShares. And can be done in a way that doesn't violate the BitShares social.
Well, does that answer your question, Lion Danny?
Let me explain a little bit further before, because I'm not quite done answering his question. With the lessons we've learned from Steem, we have the ability to create, let's call it BitShares 3.0, if you will. BitShares 3.0 would be different from the current iteration of BitShares in the following ways. It would not charge any transaction fees. It would have multiple assets like Steam-backed dollars, but pegged to different gold, silver, euros, so on and so forth. And it would create those assets only to pay people who do work. Or in the work that the blockchain would pay for would be liquidity and witnesses. So with liquidity and witnesses paid for in these assets, and the blockchain then turn around and backing them, you would have an exchange with no fees, pegged assets where you can trade gold, silver, so on. I would then share drop such a chain on BitShares with a allocation that's sufficient to cover the cost of development. And that would be the way that I would take the lessons we've learned from Steem and apply them to the holders of BitShares in creating a BitShares 3.0 that really tries to solve, I think our number one problem has been liquidity, and our number two problem has been unwillingness of people to short bit assets at $1.
So are you saying that you would do away with the shorting function and just have the creation of these similar to Steam-backed assets simply to pay for, what did you say, witnesses and market liquidity?
Yes, and if you view, like, you have to pay for what you want, right? And Steem wants lots of user comments and aggregation and voting. An exchange needs lots of liquidity. BitShares should be owned by the people who are providing liquidity to a large extent, rather than just the people who built it. It's trying to hold on to 99% of the equity and paying everyone else small little bits. You're not going to attract much capital. The price is wrong. Right? People aren't contributing capital because they're not getting enough in return. If you want to build a community and a blockchain around trading and exchanging, the traders and exchangers need to be the ones that end up owning it, with some small percent going to the people who invested and built it in the first place. But the short-sightedness at the beginning of BitShares was that we could allocate the supply and be done, treating it as a currency and viewing inflation as bad. There's just been a lot of things at play here that have kind of tied BitShares' hands behind its back and said, "Go succeed and make us a lot of money," but we're not willing to pay anyone to actually do the work necessary to make us a lot of money. So, that's the answer there. So someone asked the question is, will Steem share drop on BitShares? I had a blog post recently where I addressed launching a new crypto token in as legally compliant manner as possible. As far as I can tell, there's only one way that the regulators have authorized creating tokens and that is through manufacturing effort, aka mining. Attempts at pre-mining or pre-allocating shares or tokens has gotten companies like Ripple in a lot of trouble. I'm not saying that share dropping is guaranteed to get you in trouble. I am simply stating that it's more risky than not share dropping. So we analyzed it all, and the Steem was launched with a public announcement on Bitcoin Talk and full source code at the time of announcement. And people had time to compile and look at the code, which was fully complete at the time it was launched. It was not launched as a proto-shares, token that's promised to do something in the future. Almost all the work for Steem was done in advance to anyone mining it. So all these steps were taken in an effort to make sure that we cover our costs legally, we cover our back, so if this thing gets big, we don't end up with $1 million fines down the road. So that said, we also wanted to reserve a large amount of Steem to give to people who sign up. So,
Bytemaster, could you comment about the transition from the mining underpinnings of Steem away from that when that happens? What's the plan for moving away from mining?
Sure. So the Steem consensus algorithm is based on a variation of BitShares. 21 witnesses are selected each round. 19 of them are done by approval voting of vesting stakeholders, just like BitShares. One of them will be done by proof of work, which means you do proof of work, you get added into the queue of people, and then you get scheduled to produce a block. And then the last slot is done proportional to total votes. So if you've got 1% of total votes in the system, you'll get to produce blocks 1% of the time in that last slot, which means that anyone and everyone who wants to produce blocks can produce blocks on Steem. You can either run a political campaign and get voted to the top 19, in which case you produce every round, or you can just vote for yourself and produce however often you get around to it, or you can do mining and produce as proportional to your hash power. The mining is done so that on average, one proof of work is solved every minute or every 63 seconds. And collectively, all miners will receive about 5% of all block production rewards, which at Bitcoin scale is about $2 million a year paid to miners, and 1% of the market capitalization per year is paid to all block producers, witnesses collectively.
So it sounds like that you always plan on allowing mining to be a part of the operation. It's not going to be phased out. It's just going to be relegated to be a smaller part in proportion to the other types of ways to produce blocks. And also sounds like the algorithm that you have is a lot easier than the Bitcoin algorithm, so people could use their GPUs or CPUs to mine.
The algorithm is designed to require the private key to mine, which means it prevents botnets from taking over, because the botnet operators would have to distribute the private key to all the compromised machines. And if the private key that you use for mining is discovered, all your funds can be stolen. So it's not a good idea for botnet operators. Same thing also prevents mining pools. The other thing is all mining rewards are paid out in vesting Steem, which means that opportunistic miners who are looking at today's price and today's exchange rate to determine whether or not to mine. Can't turn on and off, and instead the mining difficulty is going to be set by those with long-term value estimates, which should be simultaneously more stable and easier. Also higher, but also less competition. So it should be an interesting combination. The purpose for having mining in there is, one, it optimizes a useful algorithm, signature verification, that we need. Two, it's in part a marketing gimmick. We can claim we're proof of work just as like everyone else, with one block per minute being produced by someone who's done a proof of work. There's an objective measure of the price of the token or the quality of the chain. So creating forgeries or long-term attacks go down can get a lot of the benefits that the proof of work crowd gets, while we're still retaining all the benefits of delegated proof of stake, 3-second blocks, reliable block producers, 100% participant, those types of things. So we really tried to take all the lessons learned and create this hybrid. The other thing we did with Steem is we removed the committee. There is no committee because there are no fees that need to be set. There are no parameters that need to be tuned. The only parameters the system has are the maximum block size, which is set by a vote of the witnesses and miners. So they can grow network capacity in a coordinated manner.
Out of curiosity, how have you guys found solutions to the problems that Reddit has with people going in like with botnets and voting up or down posts?
Sure. So I guess this is a good time to plug the white paper. Join us on steem.slack.com. The white paper is pinned there. People can get you invites to Steem. It's a 41-page beast of a white paper that outlines in great detail much of what we're talking about here. The way the network prevents voting abuse is by rate limiting votes or voting power. The more things you vote for, the less power each vote counts for. So if you vote for things, your vote's going to be worth 1/1000th of if you voted for 20 things. So that's steem.slack.com, STEEM, not EAM. Some background on the meaning there. Steem is a form of esteem, which means to value. Anyway, back to voting. We tried to design it so that it would operate on a human scale. If you should vote for at least 20 things per day, but to maximize your voting power, but once you vote for more than 20 things, your voting power starts to diminish rapidly. So it's sort of the concept of you can vote for 1 million things with 1/1,000,000th of your voting power, or you can vote for 20 things with all your voting power. Bots have no advantage here. The other factor is that if you spread your votes out, the impact each vote has on growing the popularity of a post is less, which means your reward for voting on popular content falls. So if you want to maximize the rewards you get for finding popular content before it becomes popular, you want to ration your votes to the few things you think are going to be best rather than using a shotgun approach in voting for everything.
So this is kind of like an incentivized community curation scheme. Essentially, you're incentivizing the best, truly the best content to rise to the top.
Exactly. Curation is just as important as content creation. Now, every time someone votes, they're creating a link between themselves and the content. And it is links that give the internet value. You took all the content on the internet, remove the links, Google would have no idea how to rank it. You can pay people to produce all the content in the world. If you don't have a way of curating it, that content has no value. Links give the content value. In the same sense, people who do the curation give the content created by others value. It's the combined effect of curators and content creators that produce value. Therefore, both are rewarded with a share. Now, it's critical that the value of a vote is greater when there's less information about it. So if it's a new post, no one's ever seen it before, a computer has no way of knowing whether or not it's valuable. It could be spam, it might not be. Someone who reads it and votes for it is providing more value at the beginning than after it's already on the main page, right? It's on the top page, it's got thousands of votes. An additional vote at that point in time adds no value, no new information to the system. We already know it's popular. So the algorithm is designed to reward people who provide new information to the system.
So the most popular new information at any given time.
Right, voting on stuff before it becomes popular. Basically, you go out there and you discover the next hit pop artist and you invest in them by voting for them, and they become popular. You benefit too.
Do you expect
Sounds actually kind of.
Do you expect Steam-backed dollars to trade approximately 1-for-1 with BitUSD?
So the Steem network can is somewhat limited in its ability to cap the rise in value of a Steem dollar if the demand for Steem dollars exceeds the supply, because the Steem network does not create an unlimited number of Steem dollars to meet demand. The only thing it can do is guarantee that it will be worth at least $1. The difference is Steem gets dollars into the hands of thousands and millions of people, hopefully, whereas BitUSD never gets into the hands of people, so it never trades, it never gets known or used. So I can say it will be at least $1. If demand for Steem dollars is incredibly high, they could be worth more than $1. I suspect that if that's the case, the value of the network will be rising. And if the value of the network's rising, the debt to equity ratio will be falling. The so yeah, it's very hard to maintain a peg that's perfect in all scenarios. But if you want to make sure something gets created, put into circulation, it's not dependent upon finding shorts to create it. It's not does not require people to buy it before they get it. When you get a Steem dollar, you don't think about, did I have to pay $1 for it or not? Or did I have to pay $1.10 or $1.20? Hey, I just got it for doing what I did. If I can sell it for more than $1, great. Whereas with BitUSD, if you have to buy it first, you're not going to pay more than $1, so you're stalemate.
Well, then are you expecting Steem dollar to enter normal commerce and be used in point-of-sale systems?
I would expect that, yes, that they would be useful as a currency, just like we had intended BitUSD to be used as a currency. One of the things that I thought about doing was allowing people to borrow with collateral and sell Steem dollars. But there's challenges there, and we wanted to simplify the overall protocol. So we didn't want to have to worry about black swans and other things like that.
Going back to one of Lion Danny's previous questions, is there any room in the future, I guess maybe just in terms of, or in the interest of creating more robustness, that a currency or a unit of value other than the dollar would be used, like gold or euro, with the witnesses?
Sure. The witnesses are actually able to peg it to whatever value they want to, based on the price feed they publish. If there's a hyperinflationary event in the dollar, then they could switch it to peg it to whatever the new currency is. Gold, silver, special drawing rights, $2016 that are adjusted for inflation.
There's only one option,
in the
though?
case of, so yeah, that's never mind. Go ahead.
I'm going to answer the same way Apple does. Having one button is good, at least early on. The more options you give, the more there is to teach, the more things there are to break, the more the markets are divided. You divide your network effect. So, for the foreseeable future,
unless that's a self-destruct button.
Yeah, unless there's a dollar collapse that's catastrophic, and dollars cease to be the currency of the land, it makes the most sense to gain adoption, to have it priced in something people already understand. The network's not attempting to be BitShares, but I do think there is room in the cryptocurrency space for these ideas to be implemented in a new decentralized exchange platform that combines the bond market, all the activity we talk about on the exchanges, with the Steem-backed dollar system to create a much more robust decentralized exchange, taking the concept of BitShares and hopefully realizing its original intent.
I think the concern with some of the people has been, if there are going to be multiple Steem, like Steem Gold, Steem Silver, etc., that this might be a competitor directly eventually to BitShares.
There's not going to be multiple assets on the Steem network. It would require a hard fork. The code as it's written is not even designed to support easily adding additional apps. So simply
speaking, you're talking about just it has the ability to peg itself to whatever currency is stable at the time, but only one currency at any given time, or maybe perhaps a basket.
Anything that you can put a price feed to, it will peg to. And we're saying $1, that's what it will be. To change it from $1 would require it's almost like a hard fork like level decision, changing marketing and everything else. But the ideas can be used to build a new blockchain that share drops on BitShares and rewards liquidity providers and block producers with a basket of these different assets to introduce them to the supply. And if you combine that way of issuing it with the bid asset, the ability to short it backed by collateral, you can have almost the best of both worlds, and a much more robust decentralized exchange. The reason I did not go down the road of creating a more robust decentralized exchange first is because they see the market in social media for getting new users to be much bigger, much easier to explain, much easier for most people to participate in. So I went after the largest market. But in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking about how to apply all these things to build BitShares 3.
BitShares 3.0.
Which would necessarily
that I
have to be
think-
share dropped as opposed to overhauled, correct? Unless everyone voted on it, I guess.
Yeah, it'd have to be a share drop, and then let the market sort it out.
I had a question. BM, again, thank you for explaining Steem and introducing it, and really getting the community to think, beyond just keeping everything here and just like messing with new ideas. I didn't know if you had talked earlier on about it, but I know you said last week that you couldn't really touch on it. But I wanted to know if you could speak a little bit about the demographic this is actually aimed towards in the short term or the long term. Like you mentioned last week that you couldn't, but I don't know if that has changed now that the white paper's out and stuff of that sort.
Sure. I've been given the go-ahead by my partner with Steem, Ned Scott. Ned's been crucial, long-term follower of BitShares. And he's sort of the networking. He's going and talking to people constantly, investors, going to conferences, getting partners on board. He's doing all the things that managing PR and all that stuff. Doing all the stuff that I'm not necessarily the best at, which is great. It allows me to focus on the technical and economic aspects of things. So I couldn't talk about it last week because Ned wasn't ready for me to start sharing the information. But I've been given the go-ahead to talk about things. So I'd be more than happy to address that now. The demographic, easiest way to understand it is if you use Reddit or Stack Exchange, that's who we're going after.
Okay, I see. So that's at least that's the market that Steem will be started with, because a lot of currency communities get into that whole it's almost like recursion where they're pretty much building things for themselves but marketing it as if it's for something else, but the only people who are actually using it is other developers rather than different demographics that actually matter, like millennials or regular people or people who know nothing about digital currencies. So that's always a question that I like to hear people answer, especially when it comes to these new digital currency projects.
It's, if you think about it, for the past 15, 20 years, there have been point systems on Slashdot with moderation, meta moderation. There's Reddit Karma, Reddit Gold. There's all these social platforms have tried to gamify, and they've been doing it for a very long time. Stack Exchange has their points and has been incredibly effective at driving user adoption purely for bragging rights, purely for influence. What Steem's done is it's taking the accounting system and moved it to a blockchain and made the points transferable and pegged them to the dollar. So we're taking proven concepts that have worked in all those markets, and we're applying it to cryptocurrency. The added utility of putting it on a blockchain means that the tokens that were previously only good for Karma on one platform can now be used across all platforms. It's open. Many people can integrate. And so it should drive a tremendous amount of value to the token just by putting it on a blockchain compared to being the internal database of Reddit or Facebook.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that sentiment, and I definitely I would agree with the way that you characterize it and how using that using what previously has worked, in the regular tech sector and actually applying that to your project. I think that's definitely it's definitely gonna be different than what anybody else is doing. And I'm glad to see others, starting to really take that route.
And do you see this as an opportunity to um, potentially use Steem as a platform to also get people onto BitShares? Could Steem become a funnel?
Yeah, it is. The unreleased website for Steem has an entire how-to with using the video series of how to buy through OpenLedger and OpenSteam. The BitShares will hopefully benefit from a halo effect. If Steem becomes popular, people will realize that the BitShares is built on the same foundation and by the same people who built Steem, which will cause more people to look at and think about BitShares. So anything that gets the technology and the people involved in BitShares greater traction in the market, I think ultimately benefits BitShares. It's just kind of like Bitcoin going up rises all boats. Steem going up should improve BitShares.
And do you see it ever as being something that could become a side chain?
Yes. The reason I started talking about side chains is because there are a lot of applications like Steem that can be built. I think Steem is going to change the discussion and the architecture of blockchains. Things that you can do in the future, because by eliminating transaction fees, just huge game changer. But imagine GitHub on a blockchain. That's now possible, where you automatically get rewarded for providing issues, fixing issues, saying things. Wikipedia on a blockchain, where you take the concept of Steem and you reward people for editing and correcting content. And then, of course, all the mutual aid society concepts that could evolve from this. All these things benefit from being their own platform rather than trying to integrate to an existing one. The trade across platform. And with DPoS and the elected witnesses and so on, it makes it relatively easy compared to proof of work, implement side chains in a trustable manner. And I see that as being a long-term technical solution. But obviously, one of the problems in the cryptocurrency space is that people focus so much on technical solutions that are so far removed from the users that they have little practical value today. So that's that.
Kind of like a sandbox of blockchains where they're just trying to see what can be done with it at this juncture, but it's not really as I think Dan Robles likes to say quite often, is it doesn't really touch the ground.
Yes. One of the great things about social media is that we already have tons of examples of user interfaces that people get and they know how to use. So we are going to be copying the best ideas that we see out there. Things like the discussion chats, go with minimalistic styling. It's a lot easier to build an interface for social media than it is to build an exchange.
Is there a potential for Reddit to fork Steem and move their user base over?
Well, the code base explicitly forbids it, at least the license does. So they'd have to redevelop it from scratch. But they canned their cryptocurrency project. So who knows? They also have a lot of legacy stuff to migrate. And it's really expensive to migrate users compared to starting a new project.
So what's the model?
My
Go ahead,
question
Lon.
was to do with the licensing.
Sure. Now the licensing is similar to what BitShares 2 was originally. It basically says that you can use the source code for any applications that build on the Steem blockchain, but you can't create any other forks, blockchain forks, or start any new chains that aren't signed by the Genesis key or are not recognized by our company. So yes, the code's out there. Everyone can audit it and inspect it and build it and compile it and adapt it to build applications on Steem. But if you try to create another blockchain with it, you're violating the terms of the license.
So is it similar to the way that BitShares is set up as far as people being able to create independent, like hosted wallet type applications?
Yes. So steemit.com is under development right now. It's going to be our own block explorer / open ledger or blockchain.info style thing that will allow you to use the Steem network. Our interface is not going to be open source. It's going to be basically our advantage in the market. We're not going to store private keys for users, but your password will be your private key. So that means that you can log in from anywhere as long as you know your password. We're just going to require a robust password, and then encourage people to use password management tools like LastPass to generate and save and back and store secure passwords. So the user experience for steemit.com will be like any other platform. You log in, account name, password, single user, single account. It's not going to be like the BitShares wallet where you can have 10 different accounts. Other differences, everything's public. There's no stealth support at this time. We will consider adding stealth support in the future, but that was not viewed as a critical component for our social media platform, where the currency is secondary to the social aspects of it. All memos are public, whereas BitShares, the memos are encrypted, the memos are public. But that doesn't mean you can't encrypt the memos separately and then include them on the blockchain. We're just building this in layers. So the basic blockchain tries to specify as little possible, and then higher level layers can define protocols for memos and so on and so forth. Eventually, we can support direct messaging and things like that. There's a endless number of possibilities we can do with this platform. But yes, steemit.com will be a hosted web wallet, but it's not even going to feel like a wallet because you log in and you're not taken to your account transaction history pages. You're taken to your content and you start browsing and voting. So it'll be a very different experience from other wallets.
Stack Exchange is broken up into dozens of individual communities. Do you think Steem will be able to host all these different communities on one database, or do you see potentially a need to split it into multiple databases later?
At the end of the day, the people who own the Steem are going to define what gets rewarded and what gets punished. If the people who own Steem don't like poetry and you post a limerick, you're going to get downvoted. But on the other hand, if you created a clone of Steem and distribute it to people who love limericks, then the voting patterns and rewards would be completely different. What I can say is the Steem protocol will need many clones to address every possible community niche out there. And that we are willing to license it for various communities as time permits, or as things mature, and we figure out all the different parts. But Steem itself is going to be going for the general purpose. Whatever happens to be interested, the Reddit style community, whatever news, we're not going to try to shape how it's used. We'll let the market organically sort that out. But after it's successful, I can imagine lots of clones, more clones than probably Bitcoin has, with communities trying to reward and incentivize tech support. Every company might want to use this just for their own tech support forum. So there's that.
Could you comment on the transition of Steem into mutual aid societies?
Sure. So with a mutual aid society, a bunch of people put money into a pot, and then that group of people needs to vote on claims to figure out whether or not someone should receive a payout. The infrastructure for that is very similar to what we're doing here. Here, the pot is new currency allocation, and everyone's voting on contributions. So most of the work in creating the interface, the commenting, the posting, the commenting, the posting, the wallet infrastructure, the removing transaction fees, the pegged assets, all those things that we put into Steem gets you 90% of the way to a mutual aid society. And we'll learn a lot from Steem about how people vote that will allow us to better build mutual aid societies. So, as I said in the beginning, I was solving the problems needed for mutual aid society and stumbled upon something that I thought would be a viable. Presented it to Ned and others. It was immediately loved by everyone we pitch it to. The poor guys who've been out there pitching BitShares to people over and over and over and struggling to get people to understand, go out there and they pitch Steem, and all of a sudden it's like night and day, the difference in reactions that we get from people. People understand it, they love it, they want to put money into it. So we're very excited about what that means for its future success.
Yeah, I think
this reaches down to kind of, I think, what Solomon was talking about in terms of the user base, because whenever you're approaching people who everybody knows what a social network is, and everybody knows that if you can tell them you can get paid to participate in this social network, that's something they understand today, and they don't need to understand what Bitcoin is really to understand the value of that.
That's exactly
Whereas
right.
the DEX, I mean, Lord knows, BitShares can be everything if we want it to, right? That's basically what we've been saying this entirety of the evolution of BitShares.
So as far as for the short term, my ongoing support for BitShares will be advisory and or emergency bug fixes if something comes up. It needs emergency maintenance. The network hangs we had earlier this year. Those types of things I'll be there to support to make sure BitShares can continue to tick along. But my number one concern is actually making sure I don't run out of money. I've been funding development of BitShares personally for over a year, and that's not sustainable, particularly with BitShares at this price and my supply of BitShares dwindling as I have to sell to fund for development of BitShares. So the best thing I can do for BitShares and the community as a whole is to build products and services that allow me to achieve my real goal, which is not the success of any one blockchain, but the promotion of freedom, creating free market solutions for securing life, liberty, and property. And that's my real goal. That's what 100% of my time is focused toward. And if I can produce products that can be successful and generate income and a return, it gives me more resources to continue to invest and build the parts of a free market economy. So what I work on is what I think is necessary to have the biggest impact in furthering that agenda, life, liberty, and property. So by my assessment, the best use of my time right now is Steem. I'm almost completely focused on Steem at this point in time. I haven't forgotten about BitShares. I still own a large number of BitShares. So I'm still a BitShares whale. But I think, based on the Chinese community's voting, they want no more dilution. They want things to stabilize. I think BitShares needs to sit on the back burner for a little bit while we go and we solve these other problems, and then we can revisit the decentralized exchange idea after we've got more experience, more funding, more money made possible by work on Steem.
Is there a time frame for when mining Steem is a particularly good idea? I know we'll always be able to mine it, but there's some cutoff where you move over to DPS?
April 24th is when, right now, all blocks are produced by people who've done proof of work. April 24th, it switches over to elected witnesses.
Thanks.
At Ken Code says here, Steem mumbles on Thursdays, BitShares mumbles on Fridays as usual.
So someone asked me the question: what if the unexpected happens and BitShares price goes up to 5 or 10 cents? Will we have a shift in plans? Obviously, I'm going to go where the market moves, where there's demand, and where things are growing. If BitShares starts taking off and decides that the Chinese community decides they want to fund things again, then I'm still pro BitShares. I still want BitShares to succeed, and the things I'm doing are all parts of trying to make sure that I can succeed so that I can help BitShares succeed.
Do you feel like that answers the question, Lucky Bit? Okay. Well, we're sitting at about an hour and 30 minutes. We have these hangouts every Friday. So feel free if you joined up late to make sure to come around 10 a.m. Eastern every Friday. If you have not had the opportunity to listen to all of this and would like to listen to it, it will be posted before the end of the day. a link will be posted in the forums, so that'll be available as well. Thank you everybody for attending, and I will definitely talk to you, Ken, or talk to everybody about your topic here after we stop recording.